presentation, so I'll keep it to the 10 minutes, or no, I'll keep it to 8, so we'll be back on time with 10:15. We'll go over to the next presenter. So I'm just going to share my presentation, and Catherine, you might give me a shout to say that you can see it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Very good. So Brian Fahy is my name. I'm currently working with the Teaching Council on a secondment basis. So I'm actually a primary school teacher in Limerick. So I'm working with the Teaching Council at the moment. So today what I'll do is I'll give you a brief overview of who the Teaching Council are, and then I'll look at maybe different pathways to teaching that you can consider. And I'll also mention about qualifying outside of Ireland, and maybe where the Teaching Council fit in around teaching in Ireland, and things like that. So the Teaching Council, we're the professional standards body for teachers in Ireland. We're based here in the Maynooth Business Campus in Kildare, and we promote and regulate the profession. So I'll just give you some examples of what we do. We would hold a register of teachers. There's just over 116,000 teachers on the register across primary, post-primary and further education. And in order to have your salaries paid by the government as a teacher in Ireland, you have to be registered with ourselves. So with that, we can, I suppose, require standards to be met in order for you to be admitted to the register of teachers. So I suppose that's how standards are maintained. We would also review and accredit programs of initial teacher education across the state. So there are nearly 80 programs of teacher education. We would also investigate complaints against teachers, and we would remove teachers from the register where need be, and so on. So that, I suppose, is just some examples. And we would also advise the Minister for Education on what the entry requirements should be for programs of teacher education. So what the minimum entry requirements should be. And then the Department of Education would make those rules, I suppose, based on our recommendations. So just to look at the education system, there's lots of different types of teaching. There's primary, post-primary and further education, which is regulated by ourselves. But there's also early years, so from 0 to 4, there's lecturing. So Catherine, you might know more about that. And then there's, teaching English as a foreign language. So there's lots of different types of teaching in Ireland. But the 3 sectors you see in your screen there, they're the ones that we regulate. And that's what I'll be referring to maybe today. You can see the different figures in terms of primary and post-primary schools and the cohort of students in the education system. So there's quite a few primary and post-primary schools across the country. So I've just put up a link here to a circular letter and the salary scales for teachers. So it's always of interest. So these are the revised salary scales for those entering teaching to both primary and post-primary teaching as of the 1st of October this year. So you can see there are the salary scales, but just bear in mind, that's the salary scale if you're on full-time hours. So at post-primary, that's 22 hours per week. And at primary, you generally don't have an hours-based system, but it's 25 for primary. But that's just the salary scale. And the reason I put that up is, as I mentioned at the start, if you embark on a pathway to becoming a teacher, it's important that you are able to get registration with the Teaching Council at the end, because you need that in order for your salary to be paid from the government funds. So that's the funds of the Department of Education or the Education and Training Boards in Ireland. So that's under the Teaching Council Act, Section 30. And that's why it's important that whatever pathway you embark on, that you're aware that it does lead to registration at the end, or what might be particularly if you qualify outside of Ireland, what you need to do prior to returning home to Ireland. Because I know you're in Dundalk here, people might be considering the border region, obviously moving up to Belfast, or even into the UK over to maybe England or Scotland or something like that. So I can talk a bit more about qualifying overseas later on. So there's 2 helpful documents here. I suppose they're 4-page leaflets, and it's a simple guide on how to become a primary school teacher and how to become a post-primary teacher. And there's links in behind these documents. And I might post a link to this presentation, Catherine, into the chat so that the students can access it and they can view it in their browser. Conscious I don't want to do it now because it'll distract maybe from the other presenters when they're presenting after me. But these are, I suppose, 4-page guides on how to become a teacher. The accredited providers then, so as I mentioned at the start, the Teaching Council, we would review and accredit programs of teacher education. So you can see there are 5 accredited providers in the primary sector. 4 of the institutions, as you see there, Mary Immaculate College, Maynooth University, Dublin City University, and Marino Institute of Education. Those 4 provide the undergraduate pathway to teacher education at primary level. So that's the 4-year Bachelor of Education. And then all 5 would provide the PME, the Professional Master of Education. And then you can see post-primary, there's lots of different providers, but they don't all provide post-primary teacher education in every subject. So if you want to become a post-primary teacher of a particular subject, you must check to see what institution can provide that. So that's where I would ask you log on directly to their websites to check to see, do they provide the subject or subjects that you wish to become a post-primary teacher of. Just for post-primary only now, I won't go into the entry requirements too much because I suppose I might leave that to the other presenters, because each institution is autonomous and they may decide to increase entry requirements as they see fit. So it'd be best for me not to go into that sort of stuff. But one of the entry requirements for post-primary, if you wanted to do the Professional Master of Education, would be that you've covered the curricular subject requirements for at least one subject. So that's a document. It lists all of the different subjects you can become registered to teach at post-primary level in Ireland, and you just need to make sure you're adhering to, I suppose, the requirements in that document. A helpful guide was this website, gov.ie/teaching transforms, and it gives lots of different information on the different pathways to teaching, both undergraduate and postgraduate, and also different information such as financial supports, but also access courses. So if you're from a community that's socioeconomically disadvantaged, or if you have a disability, or if you're from a group that's underrepresented in teaching, for example, if you're from the traveller community, there may be an access course available for you. And if you're eligible for the access course, that may allow you direct access to a program of teacher education. So check out the access courses if you feel you may be eligible for those. There's also the higher education access route and the disability access route to education, and the access office in many institutions. So do check with those. And just to mention before we finish then, qualifying outside of Ireland is possible. So if you're a fully qualified teacher from another country, so if you become fully qualified in Northern Ireland or Scotland or England, then you can return to Ireland and seek registration with the Teaching Council. So there's 3 aspects to the qualification assessment process. So you have to put in your application, and then when we have all your documents, we'll assess it. And then within 3 months of the application being submitted in full, we'll give a decision on the registration. So as I mentioned, you need to be a fully qualified teacher, and that sometimes means that you have completed a program of teacher education. So that could be a PGCE, Postgraduate Certificate in Education, in say Northern Ireland or England, and you may need to do a period of induction. That means you work in that country after qualification. Now, it depends. Some competent authorities, so the equivalent of the Teaching Council in, say, Northern Ireland, may not require you to do a period of induction prior to them giving you full registration status, or they might. So it's up to the students here, I suppose, to check what needs to be done in order to gain fully qualified status in that other country prior to returning home. When they do return home, then we will look to see, are there any shortfalls? So we'll compare the qualification achieved to the standards achieved by graduates in Ireland, and primary school teachers from out of state may not have covered Gaeilge, so they'll have the Irish language requirement applied. And similarly, the post-primary teachers coming from overseas may not have covered the history and the structures of the Irish education system. And we would also assess the post-primary qualified teachers against the curricular subject requirements. So I know I'm slightly over time, Catherine, so I'll briefly finish on this. Seeking posts afterwards, whether that's long-term contracts or short-term or substitution cover, that's where do I get work? Educationposts.ie is a great place to start, and you can search for posts by county, by type of post, and you can see it's a kind of a one-stop shop for application for teaching jobs. And final screen here shows the substitution portal called Subseeker, where you can indicate your availability to work on different days in different counties. So that's, I suppose, where some of these people on the call today, when you qualify as a teacher, where you'll get work as a teacher, or how you'll seek that employment. So thanks very much, Catherine. I'll just, last slide, sorry. The demand for teachers is nationwide, but particularly at post-primary in the areas of maths, modern foreign languages, Gaeilge, and home economics. So they are where the demand is at the moment, and in the particular cities where, I suppose, rent is high and things like that, where teachers are and other people are moving out. So you can see where the geographical demand is, but those are the subject areas where the demand is. So thanks very much, and I'll hand back to you, Catherine.
Thanks so much, Brian. As always, a really useful context setting for this particular session. And I appreciate the tailoring you've done for the DKIT students there in terms of the regular queries you get around the I suppose the border aspect of our location in terms of looking to the north and the UK in those contexts, and that area as well of substitution teaching, because I know there are regular queries we would get on top of the standard queries around subject declaration forms in different areas. So thanks as always, Brian, and there will be questions no doubt at the end. So I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Aisling Tuhill, who represents the primary aspect of today's session from DCU, and a really, I suppose, area of high interest for our students here in DKIT, Aisling. So I know there'll be plenty of people who won't just be listening live, but will be listening back on this recording. So I'll hand over to you now, and thanks as always for your time.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. Can I just double check that you can see and hear everything?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, good morning, everyone, and I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about our Professional Masters in Education Primary in DCU. I'm going to talk to you about the entry requirements. As Ryan mentioned, it's specific to DCU, although there are a lot of common elements across the providers, but I'm going to go through that. But before I do, I'd just like to give you kind of a taste of what the programme involves. And so the PME-P, as we call it in DCU, the PME Primary, has three prominent elements. They're all teaching council requirements, so therefore there's absolutely no flexibility in them. You must complete them in order to register as a teacher on graduation from our programme. So we have the taught modules. We cover the curricular areas that you'd be familiar with from primary school, all 12 subjects. We cover what we can probably call foundational subjects: psychology, sociology, history of education, all of these subjects that support you in understanding how children develop understanding through the primary school years, and give you a context in terms of the backgrounds children might be coming from and how they impact on their learning in classrooms. We also have professional modules where we look specifically at how we go about teaching and what are different approaches you can take in different situations, working in schools, developing those professional relationships with principals, parents, etc. So alongside the taught modules, placement obviously is a huge part of our programme, school placement, and across the 2 years, 4 semesters of the PME-P, 2 entire semesters are given over to placement. Now, they don't all happen together. Placement is graduation, I'll just go through that in a second. But it is a very significant part of our programme. And then finally, we have na tréimhsí fealmas Gaeltacht. So 4 weeks in Gaeltacht placements, and it's really important to flag these from the very start, because our first Gaeltacht placement happens before lectures happen in the August of PME-P1. So I thought I'd just give you kind of a smattering of the modules that are taught, so you have an idea of what the PME-P involves. We, as I mentioned, every curricular subject is included, so you can just take a look there through the list. We have those foundational subjects and the professional modules as well: special and inclusive education, digital learning, assessment, etc. In terms of placement, so I know from dealing with PME-P1 students when they start, even though the first placement doesn't happen until April of, 8 months after you start almost, students are asking questions about it from day one. So I thought it would be useful to kind of give you a sense of where placement fits into the programme. So we have 5 placements on the PME-P. 2 in semester 2 of PMP1, 1 in semester 1 of PMP2, and then 2 in semester 2 of PMP2. And a couple of really important things to say about these placements. Your tutors will grade you, obviously, on placement if you take up a placement DCU, but their primary role is to support and guide you to become the best teacher you can be. So it's important to see their role in that way, to make sure that you are prepared with a myriad of questions and don't allow them to leave the room without you finding out everything that you feel you need to know. And the second thing is that placement is graduated. So what the expectations of a PMP1 student in semester 2 of PMP1 are distinctly different from the expectations of a PMP2 student in semester 2 of PMP2. The PMP1 student is an absolute novice, and that is taken into account both in what is expected from them in the classroom and what is taken into account when they are graded. Okay, and then just to give an overview of kind of the key themes of the PMP at the moment, which reflect the themes of the Teaching Council CAME requirement document. We have a focus on inclusive education. We firmly believe that it is our responsibility to ensure that every child in every classroom in Ireland is respected and supported to achieve their potential. We view our students as future teachers who will support their students in being global citizens. I won't go into too much detail across all of those because I'm sure that many of you are interested in hearing about the entry requirements, and I want to just keep to time for Catherine. So very quickly, to your programme, 5 days a week, 9 to 6, please bear that in mind when you're applying to DCU. This is very, very far from part-time. You will find it difficult to keep up a large number of hours in a part-time job while on the PMP. We'll talk, as I said, before you start lectures, 2 semesters of lectures and placement, as I mentioned. And all details are on the DCU PMP webpage as well. Okay, so the application process. So one very important thing to say is that the application process is set down by the Department of Education and Skills, and we have very little, if almost no, flexibility within it, particularly in terms of the minimum requirements. So the minimum requirements are your level 8 degree, minimum 2.2, and the following qualifications from your Leaving Cert or equivalent. So we have a list of equivalents on our website, and they're also listed on the Department of Education website. H4 in Irish, H7 in Maths, H7 in English, and then the Chastis as well. So you need your H4 in Irish and the Chastis Europac na Gaeilge. So what is Chastis Europac na Gaeilge? For those who haven't come across it, it's an Irish language proficiency exam. It is administered by Maynooth University. You need to apply through Maynooth and submit your certificate in your application to DCU. You need to get a 65 or higher. I've just given the dates there for when the exams will take place, so make a quick note of those. The exams take place at the end of January, but your application to undertake the exam has to be in by the first week in January. So I would do it, in the next week or two. The results from these exams will be issued in time for our application process. The Department of Education ensures that those things are all teed up so that the certificates are issued before we close our submission date, our submission process. And the TEG website, if you just Google search TEG Maynooth, you'll find it. We don't have a closing date yet because we confirmed that with all the HIs, but I am suspecting it will be the middle of the last week of March, most likely the Tuesday. Very importantly, you apply to us through pack.ie and our course code is DC970. So if you'd like to make a note of that. When you're applying, you need the Leaving Cert to show those minimum requirements from the Leaving Cert or the equivalents. Your transcript from KIT, the TEG certificate, passport, and student declaration page. And along with all of those kind of the logistics, you also need to complete what we call the supplementary form. So very importantly, this is your first opportunity to impress DCU. In the supplementary form, you are presenting yourself. It is the basis of the interview that you'll undertake in May, and to think carefully about what you want to say and don't leave any sections blank. Make sure you represent yourself in the best possible light without over-egging anything, because you will be asked at the interview. After your application, all the applications are verified, and then if you meet the entry requirements, you will be notified through PAC and sent an option to choose a date and time for your interview. Please make sure from the minute you submit your application to DCU that you read every email from us, because people miss the interview because they haven't read the email and they don't select a slot. So just really watch out for that. Interviews are typically held last week of May. On our website, we have the marking rubric for the interview. The interview is marked out of 100, and there's extra marks for the TEG. So the maximum interview score is 110. If you do the higher levels of TEG, you get those extra marks, or achieve high marks on the standard level, the B1. I just wanted to show this to you, but I think you should look at it in your own time. As I said, it's on our website. It is the grading scheme for the interview, so you can see what the interviewers are looking out for and what they will give the marks for. And when you're preparing answers for the interview, these are the things to focus your attention on. After the interview, the candidates who are successful. So what happens in the interview is that everybody is given marks out of 100 across all these criteria, and then the students are ranked in order from the highest mark down to the lowest, and the top 100 are offered places, of which we expect 75 to accept those places. So those successful candidates will be notified in mid-June. Anybody who's not successful will receive an email also in mid-June, and some will be told that they are on a waiting list. Some years everybody on the waiting list receives a place, and other years nobody on the waiting list receives a place. So if you receive that waiting list email, be practical in your decision making over the following weeks, and don't wait all summer to hear from DCU, just in case the place doesn't come up for you. You cannot defer an offer of a place on the PMP, and very importantly, if you are offered a place, register in time for the Grad Talk to make sure that all happens smoothly for you. Very importantly, for the first and second years and third years, or not final year students who are here, from 2024, we will be removing the interview and replacing it with a points-based system, where points are allocated for your qualifications, also for the minimum requirements, and then also for some work experience and volunteering. And if you're waiting to hear Magella and Irene in a minute, it's going to be quite similar to the current PME point system. Okay, I'm not sure, Catherine, if you want to take questions on my programme just now, or how you'd like to organise it.
If you're able to stay to the end, Aisling, we might take all the questions then, but I do know you have to move on. So I might just encourage anybody who has a specific question maybe now to either unmute themselves and put the question through to Aisling, or I can collect them, Aisling, and maybe we could do a follow-up call with myself and yourself, and I can direct them after that.
That would be great.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll just keep my eye on the chat just for now, and Aisling, if there's anything that comes into the chat that you're still able to answer before you go, then you can do this yourself via the chat mechanism. Is that okay?
That's great. Catherine, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks a million, Aisling. That was really useful and good to hear about the changes that are potentially happening for the intake from 2024 as well. So thanks for that, Aisling. And people will be busy now registering for TEG, no doubt, and reminding them of those deadlines. So next, I'm going to hand over to the to DCU again, to the Institute of Education, but this time looking at the post-primary section, and joined again by Irene White and Magella McSharry, and both who have attended this session before. Both, I think, Magella, you were virtual the last time as well. Irene has been in person on many occasions as well. So we'll hand over to you now, both of you. I don't know who's going to start off the presentation, and then we'll take questions and answers at the end of everybody's presentations at the end then. So over to yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. So I've shared the screen there. I'm not sure if it's coming through or not.
Yeah, it's coming through perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, so Magella is going to start us off. Thanks very much.
Magella, you're muted there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great. So finally, first no camera and then no volume, but anyway, we're all systems go now. So thank you, Catherine, for inviting us back again today. It's really nice to be back and to be able to talk about the PME post-primary at DCU. So both Irene and I are joint programme leaders of the programme, And we're going to give you a little overview this morning about what the programme is about and what you might expect if you're joining the programme. So you can move, thank you. So just to give you a little bit of background, so Aisling has already referred to the PMEP, and so both the PMEP and the PME, as we call it in DCU, the post-primary one, they're both located in the DCU Institute of Education. And just very briefly, this is the newest faculty in DCU, and it was only established in 2016, but it's really growing year on year, with over 140 academics and over 4,000 students from across the different sectors of education. So it's a really interesting space, and it's a really exciting place to be part of. So on campus, there are all of the services and supports that one might expect in terms of library supports, academic supports. And I'm mentioning this because I think sometimes, especially if people come from a discipline where there might not be a strong focus on maybe having to write lengthy academic essays, or maybe completing dissertations or research projects, sometimes there's a little bit of fear around what supports are available. And so just to reassure you as well that the library and the other supports in DCU offer a lot of programs and scaffolding around academic writing. So around any of the kind of assessment tasks that you would have to complete, there are individuals that you can meet or programs that you can avail of to support, and all of that is free. There's free counselling, there's restaurants, bars, free sports facilities, health centres, and all of that is free to DCU students. So it's just to note that for yourselves as well. So the DCU, like the PMEP, the DCU PME is a master's level programme. It requires a high level of academic commitment. So in terms of the delivery of the programme, you're required to be on campus in the Drumcondra campus, that is, in DCU, from 4 to 8 p.m. each Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's your on-campus commitment. But outside of that, there is also a myriad of online components that are part of the programme. And so in terms of it is a full-time programme of academic study. It carries 120 ECTS credits. And when you're not on campus and you're not engaging in those online components, you will be in your schools on placement. And Irene will talk to you a little bit more about that in a minute. It's also worth noting, just in case anyone's applying for the programme and then heading off anywhere exotic, you would have to be back by the end of August, because we start a 3-week intensive induction programme at the end of August, before the actual the commencement of the actual official academic term. So ours starts a little bit earlier. And you can see the fees for, as they currently stand, for this particular year, for first year and second year. So I'll come back to you in a few minutes, but I'll hand over to Irene for a programme overview in the meantime.
Great, thank you, Majella. So I'm just going to talk through some of the main features of the PME in DCU. So it's made up of a number of core modules. We'll look at those in a second. There's also a range of reflective tutorials attached to some of the core modules. We offer a large suite of subject specialisms for you to choose from. School placement is a core component of the program, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. There's also a research project involved. Majella referred there to writing up of a dissertation or thesis, so that's a significant element as well. And we also would have professional seminars to help with professional development, where we engage with partners in education who come in to meet with our PME students to provide support around applying for jobs and registering with the Teaching Council, engaging with DRIHID, etc. So just to give you a flavour then of the modules, so you can see here some of the core modules that we offer in year 1 and year 2. So they're typically made up of what we would call the foundations of educational studies. So typically things involving curriculum development, sociology, philosophy, psychology, and the history of education. And we also have a module on teaching in online and blended learning environments that has been a feature now of initial teacher education programs as a legacy of COVID. One of perhaps a different module there than what you might see perhaps in other PME programs is the Fostering Creativity and Innovation module, which is a newly developed module where we do have some flexibility with credits, and where we had previously used those to offer a range of electives. We've now brought those together in what we believe and hope to be a creative fashion, in that it allows us to draw on particular strengths within our PME team. So there is a specific focus there on fostering creativity in education and on developing a creative mindset among teachers and enabling them to do the same among their students. And specifically that module would look at areas such as digital media, drama, and then linguistic responsiveness. In terms of the subject specialisms that we offer, there are 13 in total. You complete one subject specialism in year 1 and the other one in year 2. And we can take questions around that at the end, because sometimes that can cause some confusion. But essentially, I suppose, just to simplify, if you have 2 curricular subjects, you can take one in year 1 and the other one in year 2. If you only have one curricular subject, you can take that in year 1, and then you could continue to teach that in year 2, but you would register for a different subject specialism in terms of attending workshops. So it would be usually with something that might be compatible. So for example, if you had, let's say, maths and science background, but you didn't have all your credits fully in the second subject, that you might be something that you'd be interested in pursuing when you complete your PME, and so you might like to avail of engaging in a module that looks at the pedagogies around teaching that subject. And we also have subjects like SPHE, which will be available to anybody who would be interested in teaching that subject and don't have to have particular requirements. So that's also a very popular option for some of our students. In terms of school placement then, one of the distinguishing features of the PME in DCU is the fact that we offer a year-long school placement. And this is something that's very popular with our students and indeed with schools, in that the feedback we receive is that students really feel that they're given an opportunity to be very much part of the school community. So they literally start in August, when schools open after the summer, during our induction period to the programme, and they're in placement Monday to Friday right through from August until schools close in June. So there's complete immersion in the school community. And during that time then, the students are involved in 4 hours of direct teaching per week. In addition to that, then you also would engage in 4 hours of placement related activities. And by that, we mean anything that happens within the school life, but that's outside of the official timetabled classrooms. So it could be involved, let's say, at staff meetings or subject planning meetings or parent-teacher meetings, sports days, extracurricular activities, school trips, etc. And in addition to that, then, that over the course of the year that you would also observe 24 classes, so where you would watch other teachers deliver classes and perhaps engage in some co-teaching and so on. So that's just to kind of give you a flavour of what's entailed in school placement. The other thing to say to you about that is that over the course of the PME that you will carry out placement in 2 different settings. So you'll be in one school in first year and you'll be in a different school in second year. For the purposes of applying, you only need to secure your placement for year 1. You don't have to worry about securing anything for year 2 at the point of application. So in relation to applying then, all applications are made online at www.pac.ie, and our course code is DC905. You can see the key dates highlighted there on the screen. So applications are currently open. The key thing to notice there, of course, is when they close, and that is Friday the 10th of February 2023. There is a subsequent closing date for the upload of documentation 2 weeks later. However, that only applies if you've already submitted the application, the initial application online by the 10th of February. So it will be really important to note that. And just also to give you an indication that we are normally, PAC and ourselves would make provisional offers usually around late March, early April. So that's when you might expect to hear back from us. So in terms of what's actually required then for the application, you need to have certified copies of transcripts. There's also the DCU subject specialisms form where you would indicate the subjects that you would wish to register for in year 1 and year 2. You need a copy of your of a valid passport. You need to complete your school placement form, and you also need to upload reference from an employer. However, just to note that that's only needed if proof of relevant work experience is being claimed. And I'm going to hand back to Majella now, who will explain what that means and what that's about on the next slide.
Thanks, Irene. So when you're applying for the PME, you will find a lot of information on the DC 905 DCU page, and you'll also find all of the information that you need on the DC 905 PAC page. So they're your first ports of call, I suppose, if you want more kind of detailed, so reading. But I'll give you a kind of a brief overview now. So we have a scoring system where you're offered a place based on the number of points that you're applying with. Your points are based on a number of criteria. First, on your academic performance, so on your grade point average, and that's your most recent grade point average. So if you're a final year student and you're applying on the basis of your, say you're in 3rd year and you're applying on the basis of your 2nd year results, then it's your penultimate year that you're applying on the basis of, and not your final year, because you don't have those grades yet. If you're a graduate, then you're applying on the basis of your final year results, your graduate results. And the same thing if you're involved in a 4-year degree program, the same applies. So just to kind of be aware of that. So based on your grade point average, you have a certain number of points. And again, if you go to the scoring system on DC 905 DCU or on PAC, you'll get a more detailed overview of what that looks like. What does a certain grade point average translate into in terms of points? You can also gain additional points for having relevant professional experience. You can gain up to 5 points if you have full-time relevant experience, or you can gain up to 2 points if you have part-time relevant experience. And part-time is considered part-time over the duration of a year, or full-time over the duration of 3 months. So 2 years max for part-time. And then what is relevant experience? So that's a number of different kind of aspects to it. The first one is in terms of working in education. So you might have worked abroad as a teacher, for instance, you could get points for that. You might have worked as a classroom assistant here in Ireland, you could get points for that. Having worked in a school, but perhaps working as part of the caretaking staff or something like that, that wouldn't count because it's not kind of working directly in education itself in terms of direct teaching. The second part is working with children. So perhaps you worked as a sports coach. You might get a point for that or points for that, but working as a personal fitness instructor with just one person, one-to-one, you won't get points for that. Again, there's a kind of a more detailed overview if you go and have a look at PAC or at DCU homepages. You can also get a point or a number of points for relevant professional experience. So for instance, if you had a degree in accounting and you had worked as an accountant, you could get a number of points for that. Working in a shop or a restaurant or something like that, you wouldn't get points for it. So it really depends on what the experience is, the work experience is. And again, have a look and you get a more specific breakdown than we're able to provide in this time space. It's also just worth pointing out that that has to be paid employment, so you need to have proof of that employment from your employer, and that is one of the forms that you need to complete, is showing that proof of employment. You also have an additional points available if you have other postgraduate qualifications. So for instance, 10 points for PhD, 6 points for a master's, and again, there are others as well, like a graduate diploma. And you can, again, as I said, go to the DC 905 DCU page or the PAC page for more information on that. So I think probably I'm conscious of time, and we're just 2 minutes over. So I'm here available to stay on anyway, Catherine, and can take questions at the end. So I'm happy to do that.
Great. And that's what we'll do then, Magella. We'll wait till the end and take questions then, and I'm sure some things will come through in terms of that work experience you're talking about, because it is a regular question that I would get. And those subject specialisms, Irene, there may be something in there around the selection around 1 or 2 subjects and how to manage that as well. Just let me see. Questions. I'm going to encourage everybody to pop questions into the chat. Anybody who is logging on online, anybody who's here in the classroom can put their hand up, and I'll field the questions here at the end of the session. So do be jotting down any questions that you do have. So now it's the turn of Hibernia, and Laura, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And you have the task of taking us through both the primary and post-primary PMEs. So over to yourself. Thanks a million, Laura.
Thank you. Am I sharing okay there?
Yeah, perfect.
Good, great. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this morning. So my name's Laura. I'm part of the enrollment team at Hibernia College. I'm going to talk you through, as Catherine said, both programs, and with a slight change because we're revalidated for autumn 23. So it's going to be subject to validation and accreditation for some bits, and some slight changes from anybody who has joined us on a talk previously. There might be some minor changes. I'll also try and focus on the differences between us and the DCU program that you've just heard about, just to make those bits clear. There'll be a bit like speed through as well, because obviously they'll be very similar to what we've heard already today. So just about us, I suppose anybody who's not aware, Hibernia College are Ireland's first accredited online third level institution. We've been doing it for about 20 years now. We are predominantly education, but have moved into nursing and data analytics over the last couple of years. So we're in a growth period, and we're currently the largest provider of primary school teachers in Ireland. The slight differences with ourselves, obviously, we are a blended learning module. I will go a little bit more detail into that for anybody who doesn't understand. We're not completely online, but I'll go through the both parts so you can understand exactly what it entails. We have a 98% completion rate in our programs, really high levels of support, and we are award-winning digital technologies that will guide you through the program. I've also got a new elective module for autumn 23 that I'll give you a little bit more about also. I am going to absolutely speed through this because I'm going to do 2 programs in one. So we are a blended learning of face-to-face and online learning. So we do some classroom, some online, and then obviously your placements. All of the online learning activity, as I said, is in it, and it's interactive, and we'll go through a little bit of that. So the program, as we have heard, is a 120 credit level 9 program for the professional masters in primary and post-primary education, so one or the other. We have 2 intakes per year. If you're currently in your final year, you'll be coming into us for spring 23, or if you want to take a short break and not quite take a full year before you move to your postgrad, we do have a spring option too, but you will have fully completed your undergrad at that point. So spring 23 won't be an option, but it would be, if you wanted to take the small break, you could have the option of spring 24. Also, it's 24 months continuous. It's not semesterized like a regular program would be. We run right through the summer months with short breaks then and at Christmas. So the online elements, we have online lectures and self-study. They would be generally a couple of hours, an hour and a half in the evenings, usually Monday to Thursday, a couple of days a week. They're tutor moderated online lectures that you will have attendance taken at. So it's a really high level of attendance expected at these on these lectures. So they're about 2 or 3 a week, about an hour and a half. So it averages out depending on what type of the time of the program you're at. You could have 2, you could have 3, you could have none if you're on placement. And then we have an online library with everything you'll need there. Our face-to-face elements. So again, approximately 2 Saturdays per month, but again, it depends on what stage of the program you're at, what your course load is, and if you're on placement or not. That is mandatory attendance, and it is as I said, if you are, so it's slightly different if you're primary or post-primary. If you're primary, there'll be regional centres, depending on where you're based. And if you're post-primary, they will be in Dublin because they are subject specific. The school placement for us is 24 weeks in total, 7, 7 and 10 weeks, which we'll also go through in a little bit more detail. And your Gaeltacht is 2 blocks of 2 weeks for primary only, and they're in the summer months. So it's a full-time, so that's the other difference, is it's blended learning and it's evening tutorials, but it is a full-time commitment, which we would say is a really important thing to remember, that while it's blended and it's slightly timed differently, it is a full-time commitment for the 2 years. So the elements of your continuous assessment are your reflective journals, essays and learning logs. You will have a portfolio that you fill throughout the process, your skill placement, that's including your lesson plans, and the only exams on the program are your Gaeilge exams for the primary program only. And then you will complete your mini thesis throughout the 2 years. So you'll come up to your subject early on, you'll have a supportive tutor, and you will work on that throughout. So as I said, skill placement, 24 weeks in total, 7, 7 and 10 weeks. We can give you a full breakdown of hours per placement. For us, you do organise the skill placement yourself. So we would say when you apply for the programme is to contact local schools in your area, anywhere that you would hope to teach that works for you during the programme, and talk to the principals, ask if it will be possible for you to do your placement there throughout the programme. So it should be in at least 2 different schools. And it is done particularly for the first placement. We would advise, it's not essential to ask before you join the program, but we do advise that it's ideal if you can source that placement one as early as possible. If you've any issues, we don't just leave you to do it yourself. We do have a full team that will assist you in organizing your placements. So for primary, it is obviously you're there Monday to Friday for the full working day. We do expect you to take part in extracurricular activities, be fully immersed in the school experience. For the post-primary, similar to you, dissimilar, you do both subjects throughout the program with us. Well, whether you have 1 subject or 2 subjects, if you do have 2 subjects, you do throughout, but your teaching hours differ then between your subject 1 and subject 2, and your teaching hours will differ, but again, you are expected to be on the school premises from Monday to Friday for the full day and immerse yourself in the full experience. So the entry requirements are the entry requirements for the PME, as we've gone through. For us, so they're your Leaving Cert requirements, as they were previously, and then your post-primary is your level 8 honours degree in the subject related to the subject you hope to teach. For us, the main document in the post-primary is the subject declaration form. So we ask you to complete the Teaching Council subject declaration form at application stage. That allows us to assess to as high a level as possible that we can ensure that you will be able to register in the subjects that you are studying with us. So the post-primary subjects that we currently offer are, as you can see there. Now, the starred subjects are politics and society and computer science. They are starred because, as I said, we're in validation process, but we do hope to, and we should, all going well, offer those for the autumn 23 intake. You can apply with those subjects from now. So our application process is entirely online. I'll bring you through the supporting documents, what's involved in this personal statement, and what's involved in the interview for both PMEs. So for primary, your supporting documents are your Leaving Cert transcripts, obviously stating that you have reached the grades as outlined in the essential area entry requirements. So that is the official Leaving Cert transcript. must be uploaded to the application, and the final year of your undergraduate transcript. If you're currently in your final year, we will take all other years and then just some evidence that you're in your final year. We can take those pending for our autumn intakes. And then, so yeah, it should be uploaded. So you can start your application with us at any time. They're currently open. We have a spring and an autumn currently open. So just be sure that if you're applying now, you're applying for the autumn 23 intake. If you do fancy that small break to go for spring 24, they're not currently open. So currently there's the autumn 23 you would be aiming for. You can start your application at any time, upload whatever you have a look through it. And then once you're ready, you can submit the application to go through to an interview stage, which I will go through also. So that's just an image of your Leaving Cert transcript and your undergraduate transcript there. So it must state that it's a level 8. I know Catherine is fully aware of what we require document-wise from transcripts. So you should have all the support you need there. It'll just need to state that it's level 8 and an official no parchments needed. For post-primary supporting documents, we have the subject declaration form, which I'll go through quickly in a little bit more detail, but we're happy to talk to you one-on-one about that at any point, and every year of your undergraduate transcripts, and they must include your module codes and your ECTS credits to allow you to complete the subject declaration form. A little bit more on undergrad transcript, but if there's any queries on that, we're happy to go through them with you at any stage. Subject declaration forms there, you can get them from the Teaching Council website. So you look for the subject that you hope to teach. So you must be able to fully complete one subject declaration form, which means you must have the required amount of credits, be able to tick all the boxes and completely fill it with the module codes, module titles, and ECTS credits. I don't think it won't apply to anybody here that you'll be pre-modular, you won't have those credits, so we won't go into that. And then you fully signed and uploaded then as a PDF document for us to have a look at. If you do have a second subject less than 60 credits, so we would say anything from 40 to 60 credits in a second subject, we would ask you again to do a second subject declaration form with what you do have. That will be assessed by our interview panels, and if you are deemed eligible to go through on that second subject, you would then make up the additional credits after the program, but just to be aware that you couldn't register in that second subject until those credits were fully completed. Language requirements for if you're hoping to study a modern or to teach a modern language in post-primary, so you need a B2.2 and a evidence of an immersive educational experience. Now, I don't know if this is going to be relevant, so I won't go too much into this, but if you're going to look at a modern language for post-primary, do contact us directly and we'll have a chat with you. And then there's the personal statement. So use 2 questions, 1995 characters per question. You write those out in a Word document because anything after that will be cut off. This is just an opportunity for you to tell us why you consider yourself suitable to enroll in the program and what attracts you to teaching in general. We would say to put a bit of thought into these because they will be what is referenced at interview. We do still have interview at Hibernia College. We don't have the point system, as I know a number of institutions are bringing it in for the next intakes. But for us, it's still application. Once you have all of the correct documents and all of the required entry requirements, we will bring you through to interview. And then also, I suppose I'll go through it in the GAEL component. For the primary interview, it's a 20-minute general component. You're assessing your communication skills, your motivation. As I said, those bits and pieces that you can put in your personal statement and refer back to. Any like organizational planning, suitability to teach. So they will all be assessed by an interview panel with us. And so our interviews are scheduled on a rolling basis. So for autumn 23, once you submit your application, when it hits around May, we will start scheduling interviews then right through the summer. Again, if you're hoping to get away for a couple of months during the summer, we would absolutely advise that you apply early and that you drop us a line or send us a note just to say that you're hoping to apply, that you're hoping to be interviewed before you fly. But do give us a couple of weeks notice so we can plan it for you and get you in before you go away. The GAELG component, conversational fluency, vocabulary. It's a fast-paced conversation for our panel to assess your communication skills in Irish. It'll be similar to the general component, but just as Gaeilge. So you would just be having a general conversation. There's nothing to learn off. There's no there's nothing to prepare. It's just to get up to that 30 minutes Irish every day, being confident and fluent speaking it. The TEG is not mandatory for us, but it is very welcome. So if you have 65% or over in the TEG B1, that is accepted in lieu of our Irish interview. That will just have to be awarded in the last 2 years. Yeah, not mandatory, but if you are going to use it, please upload it as part of your application, so we'll know up to bring you to general interview only. And we would advise anybody, you know, who's nervous about it to, you know, get that TEG B1 in, even though it's not mandatory. So post-primary interview, 30 minutes, they're all professional interviews. A level of professionalism is expected. Again, it will assess your general communication, interpersonal skills. The only difference, well, the main difference with the post-primary interview is there's no Gaeilge, and there is a short presentation. So it's a 2 to 3 minute presentation on a junior or senior cycle curriculum topic of your choice. Must be in your first subject. Couple of slides, just showing an area of the subject that you're interested in, and just showing your skills on presentation, and just being able to teach a little bit about your subject. And also, if one of your subjects is a language, part of that interview will take place in that language. So, sorry, I'm flying through this, but I'm happy to take as many questions as you have. Applications for autumn 23 are open, as I said. You need your documents, your personal statement, and the €95 application fee. You submit the application. We have a look at it in the enrollment department. Anything, so don't be too worried. Any issues on the application, we will give you a shout and let you know, and give you the opportunity to amend or upload anything that's not there. That's sent to our admissions department, where they do a final review. And once that's validated, and as I said, if it's autumn 23, like we'll go through our spring interviews from now until February, March, and then take a short break for orientation for that cohort. And then around May, we'll start scheduling the interviews for the autumn 23. And we don't have a cap. So while it's ideal to apply early, if you are hoping to get away or just hoping to get the interview over with, that's absolutely fine. But there's no preference on anybody who applies early, or if you need, because especially for the primary interview, if you need that little bit of extra time to brush up on your Gaeilge, that's absolutely fine. Then, sorry, just for primary on that Gaeltacht element, we do organise the Gaeltacht for you. I'm not sure if that comes up anywhere here. We'll just say here. So the course total is 15,750 on acceptance of your place. So once you go through the interview process and all is successful, you will be offered a place in the programme. When you accept that place in the programme, there is a deposit of €1,050. That's including the €50 Garda vetting fee. A first instalment just before the course starts of 6,875, and a second instalment approximately 10 months later of 7,875. Your additional fee is your Gaeltacht fee for primary only. That's €750 in 2 blocks, the 2 blocks of 2 weeks. As I was saying there, the Gaeltacht, you go to the Gaeltacht with your tutor group. So that is organised by the college while you're on the program, so there's no need to worry about that before you come on. But yeah, you will be placed with your group because it's 2 weeks with your group in class, so we do arrange that. And for fees, we have a relationship with the INTO and the TUI credit unions. We would advise, if this is something that you're interested in, to have a look into it when you're going through the application process. You can't draw down any fees until you have accepted your place in the program, but it's absolutely worthwhile getting in touch with them and just seeing what the terms would be. So our autumn 23 close is June 21st, 2022. We are there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, usually a little bit earlier, a little bit later. So that's our phone number. Our enrollment team are happy to speak to you at any point about any stage of your application, or any questions you have about the course. I didn't go into the course content today, just because I'm not sure what program you're interested in, or we had enough to kind of fit in there. But we do have our own webinars that you're more than welcome to join, and they are available on the events page of our website, Hibernia College. And then if you want to pop us an email, it's advisor@hiberniacollege.net. Once you start your application, a member of our team will contact you anyway, just to make sure that if you need any help or anything like that. I'm just going to try and stop sharing it. I think I stopped sharing it, didn't I? Yeah, so please do contact us at any stage, or if you don't have our details, Catherine will be sure to pass them on, and we'll be happy to speak to you.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Laura. Well done. You sped through that, but we got all the core information. I know that was a lot to do in the time provided. But I think what you've done is provided, and I'm asking everybody to please share their slides with us, and then we'll also share that on. And there may be questions, Laura, and like for all the speakers after the event when people have just processed the information, and then we'll get them directly to you either by myself or through the students themselves. So thanks a million, Laura, for that. I'm going to encourage again people to post questions into the chat. Unmute yourself if you wish as well. I'm going to stop recording now so that people can feel more free to ask those questions. So I'm just going to stop recording and